Thank you for joining Think, Build, Launch. I am your host, Jennifer Sertl, and today is a very special day for us. Earlier, 2 years ago, we had written a book called Upstate Founders Playbook, and one of the companies that we featured was a company called SpinCar. And today, we actually have Michael Quigley, who is the co-founder of what is formerly SpinCar. It has been renamed Impel. And so let me just tell you a little bit about Michael before we jump into the show. So, of course, Michael's the co-founder of Impel, the leading digital engagement platform for automotive. Impel's SaaS productions are used by nearly every car maker and thousands of dealerships across 50 countries. At Impel, Michael serves as president and chief strategy officer, and at various times has led product, finance, and operations. He's a member of Impel's board of directors. He's also a very active investor in upstate New York in our community, and he also works as a mentor in StartFast, Cornell Tech Networks, and is part of Upstate Venture Connect's UNY 50. It is so exciting to have a founder that has created something so remarkable to be on our program today. Welcome to the show.
No, thanks for having me, Jennifer. Really excited for the discussion today.
That's fantastic. So when I was thinking, so our audience there are in the upstate area, in the Rochester region, there's like 80,000 students that all have great ideas, but not everyone's a technologist. I'm wondering if you can share with them your experience as a student and what gave you the idea to create something so remarkable, back when you were junior, senior in college.
Yeah. Well, as a non-technologist, I think I'm pretty well positioned to answer this question. And I think, if you want to create something, I think all you really need is, a bit of product sensibility and some curiosity and willingness to experiment and be wrong and just continue to press on and ultimately, discover what, your customers want and just try to, engage with them and figure out how to solve their problems. So I don't think any technology experience is really required per se. I think just, a sense of first principles and the kind of, general physics of business is really all you need and a willingness to learn ultimately.
That's awesome. Could you give us maybe 3 of what you think are the first principles?
Yeah, I would say for myself, being customer centric. So putting the customer first and in order to know what the customer is thinking, you've got to just talk to a lot of customers, frankly, before you build a product. You need to, in order to be sure that it, really meets the customer's needs, you've got to interview dozens, or in some cases, hundreds of customers. So leading with that, I think is critical. Oftentimes I'll see pitches from entrepreneurs that suggest they've never really talked to an end customer. They have this idea in their head of a product that a market needs, but without really good customer discovery, you don't know that for a fact. So I think that's super important. I think crispness and your ability to communicate your vision and story is also really important. When you, fail to be able to do that, I think it belies that, maybe you haven't, gone as deep and really thought about your customers' needs as much as you should have if you're now kind of having, difficulty boiling down what you're doing into a, handful of sentences. And, I think those are the 2 main.
Yeah, no, I think that's remarkable. I really appreciate that. One of the things I found remarkable about you as a founder is that when you started the Impel, you didn't start it like we're a startup. You actually reverse engineered it. And I just remember how recession-proof you were with COVID and all of that. Can you share just maybe 2 of the design principles that went into the long view when you kind of reverse engineered this model?
So are you talking about the rebrand specifically of Impel or?
I'm thinking of like when you started the foundation. I remember at one point you had talked about how you actually invested in marketing and you actually treated it as if it was already an established firm, even when it was kind of in startup mode.
So years ago, Spin Car, you're saying, yes. Well, I think it's important to, look bigger than you are as, an entrepreneur, especially in the early days. I mean, there's the adage that's, grossly overused, but there's some truth in it of, faking it until you make it. And, I think brand is, you'd be surprised that, how small you can be and just, have a few hundred customers, if maybe a million or $2 in ARR or something like that. And you can have an established brand if you're, a good marketer. And once you have that flywheel established with a good brand that's, starting to become, increasingly well trusted in your space, it just creates this virtuous cycle with, referrals and so forth. So important to, invest in marketing in the early days and not be afraid to, look a little bit bigger than you actually are, for sure.
Michael, I can tell from your energy that you want to talk about present future. I feel it in my bones. So let us hear from you. What was the genesis of the name change and the positioning where you are currently? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So that was a big shift. And it was really done to just better communicate the breadth of our product offering. As I said earlier, I think, curiosity is really important and a willingness to experiment is really important. And, when we got started in the auto sector some, 7 or 8 years ago, we had one idea around what, was a critical need that could be solved for car dealerships and manufacturers. And that was around, visualization of cars that are for sale. And our most popular product originally was our 360 walk around and capture app. So it allowed folks to photograph the cars and present them online in a 360 view. When you're in the business of basically allowing people to interact with spinning cars, the name Spin Car is a pretty good brand name. It sums up what you do quite nicely. It's 2 syllables. We had the .com and so forth, and it was very easy to internalize what we did. But since then, as we continued to, stay curious and experiment, we uncovered more and more customer needs and broadened out our platform from just merchandising photos to also merchandising vehicle features and options and finance and insurance products. And then about 9 or so months ago, we acquired a conversational AI company that brought us in the communication sector. Again, all verticalized for automotive still. And we sort of realized the name Spin Car wasn't really doing a good job summing up what we actually did. And we were kind of getting pigeonholed as, being the, 360 3D virtualization company, despite doing so much more. And also, entering markets like marine and power sports and RVs and so forth. And those folks that want to do business with someone with car in their name. So we decided to rebrand, and it was, a 4 or 5 month process. Again, lots of customer interviews and, had to rally the team around the new name. So a lot of work and experimentation went into it, but we ultimately settled on the name Impel, which, we think really does a great job of kind of exposing, our vision and soul around, one, driving, vehicle purchasers down the funnel, like pushing them forward down the funnel and making that experience a great one in a digital setting, but also just kind of pushing the transport industry as a broader industry forward and impelling it forward into the future into online sales.
Wow. I love that your first principle of listen to customers has followed through, and the fact that it was listening to the customers and market need that kind of impelled you kind of into the space of Impel, which was quite fascinating. As I was reading your bio and thinking of thousands of dealerships, I'm thinking across the United States, but instead it says thousands of dealerships across 50 countries. How do you create a brand that has that much global impact?
It's I guess first off, I think global impact is an area that folks, typically underinvest in software. And I think if you look at, companies today that are going public faster in, that are B2B SaaS businesses, those that are the most successful tend to go international sooner. So I think the conventional wisdom of, doing the IPO in order to go international is a really dated one. And increasingly we're seeing companies, with 20% of their revenues overseas at time of IPO today. And I think that's just going to, continue to shift as, products increasingly travel more easily across borders. And ours is definitely, in that bucket. I mean, a lot of our products are highly visual, so there's not a lot of, translation that needs to happen in order for our products to do really well in overseas countries. So I always encourage entrepreneurs to think about going international early. Some markets you need to open an office in and really invest in order to get a good launch in. But others you can look at partnering with resellers and so forth, who have their own trusted brands. So it's something I always encourage entrepreneurs to think about sooner rather than later.
That's great. Thank you. Marl Startup Studios actually funds SaaS technology companies. And I had noticed that you had one of your initial really big contracts with General Motors. Is there anything you could teach us about landing that first significant company? That wasn't your first significant company, but it's one that everyone knows the name GM. And I'm just really curious to know what we can learn about building that kind of relationship.
I would say first and foremost, it requires patience. These are, multi-billion-dollar enterprises, and they don't make decisions like startups. So you've got to, be patient and, diligently build relationships. And again, it just comes back to being customer centric and really, wanting to understand the customer's needs and, accepting and appreciating that there might not be a deal to be had on day one or, day 365. It might be a multi-year process, which in our case, it definitely was. With GM, but you've just got to be focused on building relationships and understanding the customer's needs. And ultimately, when the market is in the right place, they'll know who to go to, and you'll be off to the races.
Can you give us the timeline? Is it like an 18-month relationship, 2-year relationship? How much patience do we need?
Well, it depends on the customer. I wish there was,
I guess I want the formula.
You've just got to wait X long and then you'll land GM or so forth. But no, I mean, I think it can be quarters or it can easily be years.
Yeah. So, yeah. Your organization, Impel, is a learning organization. Can you share with us any books that you're reading or any how we can scale our knowledge to be better at platform leadership?
Yeah, I would say one great book that I just reread, actually, it's an oldie but a goodie, is The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. So a great leadership book, highly recommend it to, entrepreneurs of any stripe, not just necessarily, software entrepreneurs. But the book centers on Ben Horowitz's journey, who's now, obviously general partner at Andreessen Horowitz, and but his journey earlier in his career running a software company, amidst transformation and I guess you go as far to say turmoil even. So, the lessons learned there, I think, by Horowitz, with regards to grit and leadership are just readily transferable to any business in, navigating some choppy waters.
That's fantastic. Thank you. This question's 2-part. I would like to know some feedback or learning you got from a mentor in your early days. And then I'd also like to know one of the things that you as a mentor like to share with the entrepreneurs that you're actually helping them build.
Yeah, I think some great feedback or advice I got from one of our past board members was, again, this Lori Shane was her name, and she was and is just very, has a Wall Street finance background, and is super detail oriented, and is just an amazing operator, and so much of her advice was just like nitty gritty, like legal advice, and just great practical business advice and scaling advice. But I think the most compelling thing she ever told me was just don't forget to look around and enjoy the journey. And it's so easy to focus on this month or this quarter's bookings goals and so forth, but it's important to remember to look up and look around and look at your team and just remember what a special moment in time you're in. I mean, the being in these days when you're scaling fast, growing real fast, those are rare ones, and you should savor it. And if you don't, you'll look back and you'll really regret it. So that's something I try to do, and I try to get my team to do. Celebrate the wins, and savor the journey that we're all on here together.
And, just listening to you makes me want to take a pause. And so all of our listeners, no matter what you're doing, just take a minute now and just think of where you've come from, and take a moment to just really appreciate where you are, the team that you're with, and the idea that that you have something that's really worth your time and effort and skill to build. Thank you. That's really beautiful. We actually have the third Thursday of every month, we have an online pitch competition. And the idea is that to create an on-ramp that's kind of reverse engineered for people to participate when they're ready to participate. Any advice for people that are putting their pitch decks together? Because you've seen so many pitch competitions.
Pitch deck advice. I think most fundamentally, old advice, but I think just always worth repeating is, have two pitch decks. Have the one that you send via email that can be a little bit more text heavy, and then have the one that you actually present live that should be stripped down of any text and just a lot more graphics oriented. I think too many times I see someone presenting a pitch deck live that has paragraphs of text on it that I'm not going to read. I don't want to hear you, tell me your story. I don't want to read. And then, similarly, I get a lot of pitch decks via email that just have, graphics and that are in some ways inscrutable. So I'm not afraid to read some text that you send me a pitch deck via email. But not too much also as well. I want to, keep things brief. I think that's also really important, crispness of message. But yeah, I think knowing your medium, if you're, pitching in person or if it's an email-based pitch is important to be cognizant of. And then just generally, crispness and brevity is something that I value a lot as well.
That's great. Are you speaking, how can people get a hold of you or follow your leadership, or where should they go just to look more about what your company is up to?
They should follow us on LinkedIn. So follow Impel on LinkedIn, and, feel free to connect with me and message me.
That's great. We will definitely have all of those links when we release your show. I just think it's just remarkable hearing from Michael Quigley at Impel. Not only are they kind of breaking records and actually kind of setting the platform for automotive, but I see them as leaders and beacons for where retail is headed altogether. I'm so very grateful he was on our show today. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Marl Accelerator, with Amir Khan and Prakash Goswami for bringing this program to Rochester, New York. I'd also like to thank Upstate Venture Connect, NextCore, and Upstate Capital for all that you've done to create an environment for so many great startup programs in the community. And Upstate New York is and Western New York are just really great places for innovation. and really hopeful that you will subscribe to our program and follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. And you can also see those links in our program. Scott at Rockvox Studios, we're so grateful that you're our producer, and we're looking forward to more wonderful advice on startups and how to actually create value in the Rochester ecosystem. Thank you.